yeah, so it's super cool if you want to understand prayer and suffering and like the escape from suffering and like why culture degrades. You just have to use the analogy of prayer. Like everyone's floating in existence, they're floating in mind, and when they're drowning or when they need help, they're drowning. That's the metaphor that applies to just about everything. So people are floating in existence and they're kind of drowning or they're going under. And if you're going to help them, you have to lift them up. You have to keep them from drowning. You have to keep them from going under. So if you're treading water yourself, the water is floating you up. You're not drowning, but then you have to apply an upward force to them. So that upward force is some sort of movement, some sort of behavioral pattern that makes it so the water not only supports you, but because you're touching the other person and lifting them up, you're supporting where they are deficient. They somehow can't feel the water, they can't feel reality in such a way, they're not buoyant. Or maybe they're too heavy or something, and so they sink. And so if you can move in such a way that you can generate enough lift, right, to float yourself and them, that's suffering, that's prayer. Is when your buoyant force is being taken away, or when you can't generate buoyant force, so you fall or you sink into reality. When you're lifting somebody up, you're creating an electromagnetic field or a bubble around both of you at the contact point. Your weight becomes merged where you're lifting, and there's your density is suddenly lighter than the rest of the water. The water is holding you up. So by swimming and touching them, not only are you lifting them up, but you're also instructing or teaching or demonstrating their field what it's like to float, what it's like to swim. This is exhausting in any case, like helping anybody in any way or intentionally suffering or trying to lift the world up or change anything like that is exhausting. To try and interact with the world in that way, where the being itself becomes active and provides lift, but provides buoyancy, where consciousness provides buoyancy, it's as difficult as treading water with a weight. The weight is like a wave in the pool. It wants for a weight to be held up by the waves, there's like a ton of penance that has to be paid. If you have like a 10-pound weight and you want to keep it above, you want to keep it in the water, if you want to keep it suspended or floating, it requires a lot of like penance. It requires a lot of what do you call sacrifice, or I don't know, what do you call it when you do something for somebody else, like in that spiritual sense? If I'm gonna fast for you or whatever, it's those types of movements. And then if you touch deeper truth that all of reality rests on, like if all of reality rests on the deeper truth of the bottom of the pool, for instance, and you touch down on that, and then you lift somebody up, like if somebody's drowning and then you lift them up using by transmitting their downward force to the bottom, you have basically infinite lifting ability. But when you've done that, they are no longer being held up by consciousness, they're being held up by a truth that they are separate from. Same thing with you. If you touch ground, if you touch truth, then you stop swimming. You stop that state of mind, that knowing, which is faith. Like once you know the deeper truth, a lot of the times you lose your faith, the same way that like once you can touch ground in the pool, you stop swimming. So like if you think the point is to touch ground, or if you think the point is to know deeper truth, like the point is to engage in play and become lucid or awake, and to be able to like swim, knowing that swimming takes place in pools, and that pools are like containers of consciousness, containers of mystery that are surrounded by truth, but they're not the truth. The truth contains the consciousness. The truth contains the water. And it's like you would want, if it's important, then yeah, put your foot down, stand up, and hold the situation up. Right? But like, let's say that you're doing that, like if the whole civilization is doing that, if the parents are doing that, if everyone's doing that, then a person could very easily be born in water, or be born in a situation that they could swim, but because everyone's using this truth and just standing on it, you can totally lose the ability to swim. Then people get afraid of like floods, or then people don't like higher consciousness. If you can swim, higher consciousness is awesome. If you can't swim, higher consciousness is drowning. If you can't swim, higher consciousness covers up the science, ruins the science, it floods the field. And so suffering is the output of the heart. That's which is the closest thing that approximates just bland generic suffering. The output of the heart is swimming, treading water. I definitely missed my turn. So that output of the heart in the swimming example, you can see how you're like your movement, your swimming is being directly translated into helping something stay up. That effort, that exertion to where your heart output is not going towards you, but is going towards creating buoyancy or ease for something else. That's like the use of swimming ability in a social sense. And swimming ability in that social sense is interesting, because people who can swim, like, it's great, and then the people that swimming could help most are usually drowning and in a crazy panic and just not in a state where they care about swimming. If somebody's traumatized or afraid of drowning, they want nothing to do with the swimming. They just want the dry ground. They just want the solidity. How did I drive this far past my home? Anyway, so that's example 7,423 of why water is obviously what is subjectively experienced as awareness. So when you notice yourself looking, what that is, physically, mechanically, is the water. The water is looking. And your mind and your body and your metabolism, all your thoughts are happening in the water, so you see all those things. So when you realize that, then, like, things having to do with the mind, like things having to do with consciousness, are like very, very intuitive. It's very easy to understand everything having to do with the mind. most people have to study the mind all the time because they think the mind is invisible, so you have to learn all these different things to know anything about it. But if you realize that the mind is not invisible, it's definitely not invisible, and that it's kind of invisible. I've done other videos on how water is invisible. Like when you look at water, you're only seeing the reflection of other stuff, or you're seeing through the water, and then you're inferring that the water is there just based off of how everything else is distorted. So water is invisible like the mind, but it's like obviously distorting stuff, especially when you get it moving towards like it's that's visible. Like I see water, and even if you can't see it, you can see everything that it's doing. You can understand everything that it's doing. Like even though you can't see water, you've learned how to see it, or at least know where it is. Like you know where it is so assuredly. It's the same as if you're seeing water, even though you're not seeing it. So the mind is similar to water because it is water. That's why all these analogies work so well.